Hey Thumpers, welcome back to another film review here on Hyper RPG. Cameron and I are here to review Terminator 2 3D.
Yeah, a bit of a retro review.
A little bit of throwback, Obviously, if you didn't know, the movie just underwent a brand new restoration. It was a 4K restoration, I think.
Yes.
Must have been a 4K restoration, and they converted it to 3D. James Cameron has a little bit of a history of doing this. He did it previously with Titanic. Because of Titanic, Steven Spielberg was influenced to then do it with Jurassic Park. And now Terminator 2 3D. He's obviously working on all the Avatar movies as well, so juggling a lot of things.
And it's worth saying those two films also got bigger releases. The studios behind those were Universal and 20th Century Fox.
Yep.
This is Studio Canal, which those who don't know, Studio Canal is a great little British company, I believe. So they're the ones doing this. That's why it's not getting as big of a release as those two did.
Yeah.
So it's only at a couple AMCs. I believe it's actually probably only AMC. So that's interesting. I think it's also worth saying that there's been some small minor changes, some little bit of cleaning up. There's some famous scenes in them, but by the way, this is not the first time for either of us seeing this film.
Yeah,
just FYI. Just FYI.
I've actually seen this movie quite a few times on TV. The last time I saw it theatrically was, I think, in 2007 or 2008. I used to go to a movie that did midnight screenings. They had one of the original prints from '91. It was pretty beat up, but it was great.
Pretty beat up. If anyone ever gets to go see a print of a film from the time it came out, they're usually pretty beat up.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they did some little cleaning ups here and there. There's a couple very famous shots, mostly in the truck, LA River sequence, where you see Schwarzenegger's stuntman. It almost became a famous thing for fans of the films to be like, oh, there's clearly Arnold stuntman. They have since gone in and placed a CG Arnold face on that stuntman, so it stands out a little bit less. Because it's in 3D, they've done color correcting. The original cinematographer, I believe, went back in and upgraded the color correcting, made it look a little bit brighter, which caused a bit of an uproar. But reading that was done for the 3D because of the dimming of the glasses. We'll see if that happens on the 4K. I've already pre-ordered the 4K, so hopefully we just get those beautiful muted colors.
Yeah, I watched a comparison video of the 2017 version, I think the 2003 version, and it was interesting to see because the top version was supposedly the 2017 version, and it had a blue tint to it.
Oh, James Cameron loves them blue.
And the 2003 version has the blue tint as well, but it only has the nighttime stuff, whereas the daytime stuff is kind of played more of a warmer tone. And I honestly didn't really notice yesterday. Like yesterday when we watched there was no point in that movie where I'm like, this is too blue. It was blue where it needed to be blue, which is most of the nighttime stuff.
Well, mostly in the beginning, the first half nighttime sequences, and the latter Dyson when they go to Cyberdyne sequences.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I thought overall, the restoration looked great. My little thing about it is I feel like they over sharpened it just a little too much. Because I
didn't catch that, but I could see that.
Yeah, when you go back in, because that's the thing, when you go back in and you rescan a lot of these negatives, and you go back in and you try to digitally sharpen it, it's kind of like taking a picture that may not be exactly the right size and sharpening it up to kind of clear it up. It creates, I don't really know how to explain it. It creates a little bit of like of harsh edging on some of the images. I noticed it a little bit, and also the grain. I feel like if it wasn't completely removed, it was removed quite a bit. But again, I haven't seen this movie in theaters in a while. So
that could scare people a little bit when you say that, because some people might think of the Predator Blu-ray. The Predator Blu-ray is a famous Blu-ray where they took out all the grain and tried to update, and everyone looked like a weird plastic wax figure. That, at least to me, I didn't catch that. No one looked like a weird waxy human being.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was so seeing in the theater. This is a movie I've watched probably not in theaters, but I probably watch like about once a year. This is a once a year movie for me, if not more. It's very easy to kind of throw on. It's super watchable. But watching it this time on the big screen, you get to see how well a lot of it holds up.
Oh, yeah.
Especially theatrically, how well it's edited. That Cameron's shot composition. And what I mean by that is, like, there's not a lot of quick cuts. It's not overly handheld. It's actually a lot of very simple framing with, like, characters in the corner where they're supposed to be. I was kind of trying to pay attention to that stuff. Like the sequence when the T-1000 stabs the Terminator through the stomach with that iron rod, and it looks like the Terminator's been shut down. I think it's only like 5 or 6 angles that are chosen, which is like 3 lower angles, one of close up on the Terminator, close up on the T-1000, both of them together, a far away angle as the beatdown happens, and then like a back angle from Arnold as he's reaching for the gun. but it's all very simply shot, and that's the thing I think that James Cameron maybe doesn't get enough credit for, because he's now known so much now for the CG and all the
Avatar,
the Avatar and all the upgrades he's made digitally and all these kinds of things. But his shot composition, he still knew, like, and I think he still does actually know how to shoot a movie and keep it simple and not like make what's happening in the frame confusing.
Yeah, well, even in that same sequence where he's using that metal sort of like piece to like jam into the Terminator's head, it's really just two shots.
Yes,
it's a shot on Robert Patrick sliding it across, and it's a shot on Schwarzenegger being hit in the face, and it just keeps flip flopping between the two shots.
Yeah,
and it's very effective because you feel just this repetition of being beat to the head, and it's like it works really, really well.
And it's also worth saying too, with like that they updated the CG face on Arnold though, but a lot of the puppet stuff is still puppet stuff. And that's a great thing about watching this movie. It kind of reminds me of when I watched the Lord of the Rings, which obviously came out like 8-9 years 10 later. Is that with Lord of the Rings, they also had the thing where it's like, here's a lot of CG, but also miniatures and puppets and all that other stuff, and
a lot of other things.
And T2 had a lot of that. T2, like, this might be one of Stan Winston's masterpieces, along obviously with Jurassic Park. And it's a lot of like, here's a lot of CG, but also here's puppets. Here's James Cameron loves doing back photography, rear projection kind of stuff. Famously, I think the scene that might stand out the most of rear projection is when after they get out of the hospital and the Terminator's driving
through like the dark road,
through the dark road. It's rear projection. It's very obvious. I like that stuff. And also stop motion. When the T-1000, after being shattered as glass, it turns into like stop motion animation as it like melts and all that. And I love that stuff. I love that this movie is filled with I don't know if they're character actors or extras, but so many people, I'm like, I have never seen this person in anything else.
Yeah.
And so it almost feels like they are people who just exist within the world of Terminator 2.
Yeah.
Like, and you don't see that too much now in movies. A lot of movies now are filled with, even like the smallest part will be famous person from a TV show or background person you know very well. You don't even need to be a film nerd to go, oh, this guy from that show is now is the convenience store worker in this movie, kind of a thing. And I kind of miss that about watching a movie like this on the big screens, going like, I've never seen half of these people in anything else. I don't know if they've ever done anything else. Like a lot of the orderlies in the hospital, the cops.
I think only one of them I reckon, like I've seen him in something else. I couldn't tell you what, but I've seen him in something.
Yeah, and that kind of thing. I think that a lot of that comes from Cameron having come from the Corman world, the Roger Corman world, where it's like, just fill the movie up with very real looking people. And the sound design is great to see in the theater.
It's so good.
There's so many.
Brad Fidell's theme music.
Brad Fidell's theme. Everything. And what was great about watching this movie is also seeing the things that you maybe didn't pay attention to when you were a little kid. When you're a little kid, it's all about like the big action sequences, the major moments. And when you watch it as an adult and seeing it a bunch of times, you get to catch the more subtle filmmaking, nuancy things that happen.
Absolutely.
I think that stands out to me is, and Cameron's talked about this on his commentary, which, by the way, if you've never listened to the Terminator 2 commentary track, I can't recommend it enough. It's him and the co-writer William Wisher. It's very entertaining. But they kind of talk about when Sarah goes after Dyson, that she has fully formed into her own Terminator, where she's walking around with black sunglasses. And when she shoots at Dyson, the Terminator music plays, and I don't mean the da da da, but that like no. It's like that metal.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
as she's like trying to shoot Dyson, and it's this little subtle stuff that indicates that she has gone full.
She's crossed that line.
She's crossed the line from being the Sarah we knew in the first movie, who was like this normal person who became a warrior by the end, and then the warrior has gone too far, and we see that's like. She's almost been stripped of her humanity, like when John gives her a hug in the car, and she's just checking to see if he's hurt and tells him the mission's important. It's about the mission. It's her protocols that she's become her own Terminator. And it's after the Dyson sequence that we see her become a human being again, willing to feel emotions, all these other things. The dream sequence, the atom bomb dream sequence, is still haunting.
It is. It's terrifying. It's seeing like just watching that again and again. Yeah, you're right. I think now you notice more things as an adult, especially in the dialogue and the way it's written and the pacing of the movie. I think as a kid, I kind of felt the movie was really long. Watching it last night, like it moves, it really moves. And there were sequences where they go down. I think it's probably supposed to be like Baja or Mexico or wherever.
It's definitely across the border.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because as a kid, that sequence was kind of boring to me because nothing actiony happens. Now watching it, I'm very intrigued by some of the narration and her perspective on seeing John with the Terminator, their interactions. Like it plays out so extremely well. And on top of that, the action is still really good. I mean, like that stuff holds up. The T-1000, Robert Patrick is so good as that T-1000.
Yeah, and actually, it's worth mentioning with him too is that this film, despite the fact being Terminator 2, it had a much. People forget, I think, that the first Terminator, and maybe a lot of people of our age saw Terminator 2 first.
Yeah.
So then they go back and watch Terminator 1.
I saw Terminator 2 first.
I love Terminator 1. It's interestingly a different movie because it was low budget.
It's a horror movie.
And it's a straight up. It's a slasher movie. Yeah. It's a straight up slasher movie. It is. It might, if you put the Terminator in a hockey mask, he's Jason.
Totally.
He's basically Jason.
Absolutely.
He won't stop. He keeps coming. He gets faster and faster.
The difference is he has a gun.
Yeah, and the main difference between Terminator 1 and 2 is 1 is like non-stop tension once we go from the tech noir bar onward.
Yes.
You never forget the Terminator and the Terminator's coming. Terminator 2 is interesting in that once Robert Patrick is off the screen after the hospital escape sequence, he's off screen for maybe like 30 to 40 minutes.
Good chunk
There's
of the
a
movie.
good chunk of the movie. And the movie still works. You don't feel that horror tension anymore because now it's about building up the relationship between John and the Terminator and Sarah, who is Sarah now to John, and those kinds of things. So then when the T-1000 does show up again in the Dyson house, you almost go, oh, fuck, I forgot about this. I forgot about him.
Totally.
But it's not a bad thing. You definitely, but the movie just works so well with the characters. And that's why I think they keep trying to make sequels, and we're constantly hopeful because we love those characters. But we were talking about it last night, is that at this point, I guess it's worth saying, Cameron said that that he's going to produce 3 more. They're going to do another trilogy maybe with Tim's story. Or not Tim's story, Tim Miller. I don't know. It's unless you push that story forward, unless you maybe get away from the Connors, because at this point, it's not going to be Edward Furlong and Linda Hamilton. It probably shouldn't be. And I think Terminator 2 kind of ends with the story's done.
Yeah.
The story's done. And I think that's the other thing of watching it as a kid from an adult. As a kid, you're like, give me all the sequels, more and more.
Yeah.
And as
then
an adult,
you see T3 and you're like, ooh, this is stumbling now. We're stumbling.
Yeah. I mean, and I'll be one to recommend it if anybody's watching this. If you've not seen Sarah Connor Chronicles, it's very good. It's very good. Whereas the next 3 sequels fail because they couldn't come up with good stories and compelling things for those characters and just kind of threw crazy special effects. For example, Terminator Genesis has a helicopter sequence that's almost entirely CGI, except for the actors probably sitting in a green helicopter body.
Yep.
Whereas you watch Terminator 2, all that was filmed in reality.
Yeah.
A
Down
real
in San Pedro,
helicopter,
it looked like. Yeah.
A real helicopter goes under a real bridge in a scary sequence. But Sarah Connor Chronicles, they had a TV show budget. The effects don't look amazing, but the storylines those characters are given and the acting by especially Lena Headey as Sarah Connor is really good. I highly recommend those. You can get those now pretty cheap on Blu-ray if you're a big Terminator fan. But yeah, this film just holds up. It just holds up.
Yeah, well, I think the other thing that does so successfully is the tension continues to build and build and build. Even without the T-1000 in the story, you see the tension sort of then shifts to Sarah Connor and sort of her inner struggle. And then it kind of goes back to the main plot of the story, but it continues to build and build and build. And I feel like that's one of the things that those other sequels just couldn't do well. I wasn't invested enough in the characters, first and foremost, and I just don't feel like they convinced me that there was something at stake here. Not that the stakes necessarily had to be big. It's just the fact that I didn't feel like there were any at all.
It had to matter to the characters.
It did,
and that's sort of the difference. Is like the first film is so much about Sarah surviving.
Yeah.
The second film is not just about John surviving, but it's also about the reconnection of that family and what John means to Sarah and what Sarah means to John beyond the mission.
Right.
And that's a big part of what that movie is about. It's not said, but a big part of that movie is about them reconnecting as mother and son and not so much about soldier and future Messiah.
Yeah, exactly.
The problem is that the sequels then just became about the mission.
They did, yeah.
It just became about John surviving with Catherine Brewster, and and it wasn't about characters reconnecting. The fact that that Terminator was not the same Terminator from Terminator 2, which John should know, but he even makes a remark about it in Terminator 3. So it's almost like you're starting from scratch, but the problem is you're now just about the effects and the mission, and it's not about character work.
And I think that's the biggest thing is like, you know, whereas the Terminator was a horror movie, Terminator 2 went more into that dramatic sci-fi. The rest just became sci-fi movies. They didn't really have like stakes. Terminator Genesis, you know, some of it is pretty to look at, but at the end of the day, to me, it was just like one big CG fest of, and Terminator Genesis even more so than Terminator Salvation.
Well, I think a big thing about the first two is, again, like I can't stress enough how much James Cameron came from that kind of Corman world, and the Corman world, despite like people who shit on it will always be like, oh, they were cheap and they were just kind of make a quick buck, get these movies out. At the same time, it was also like Martin Scorsese came from there, Coppola came from there, James Cameron. They were also about simple. Keep that shit simple. Keep your dialogue tight. Keep it simple. Keep the story going. It's about the characters. Go. And I think the good filmmakers who came out of there understood that. Joe Dante. And they understood that that's what made those things work. And I think there's a lot in Terminator 1 and 2 that are very pulpy, that on a smaller budget, kind of like Alien, on a smaller budget with not a great craftsperson behind it, it's a B schlock
Absolutely.
fest. It's not the best script in the world, but it's a tight script that knows what movie it's making and does the things that are appropriate for those characters. Terminator 2 just happened to have a very big budget behind it. So what would commonly probably be like a very pulpy Corman-like script then is able to do more and be more. No, this is like, it's one of those movies where it's like, craft-wise, everyone's at the top of their game. Stan Winston's doing his best work. This is the beginnings of CG. I mean, obviously there was stuff like Willow and things like that before this, but this is the first one where it's like, we're going to create an entire character.
Well, I think the biggest challenge that they had with this, and like, you know, they tested it in The Abyss.
Yes, and I love The Abyss
in 1989, too. But like, to full-on take Robert Patrick, morph him into a metal being, a metal character, and then experiment with that and make this like liquid metal that rises out of the ground, that turns into a figure, and then it morphs into Robert Patrick. Like, for 1990, that was unheard of. And Industrial Light and Magic, that's when Industrial Light and Magic, aside from Star Wars, was really innovating, really pushing the boundaries of what technology could do. And you needed filmmakers like Lucas, like Spielberg, like James Cameron to really push that, because those were the guys who really wanted to challenge them. I mean, 2 years later, they were going off and Jurassic Park was coming out in 93. So they were sort of in that era where they were spitting out all these movies that were really pushing the envelope of doing all these crazy things. And I mean, it's impressive. The T-1000, to see what they were able to do in 1990, because I mean, that's when it basically was being made, was in 1990 into 91. It's really impressive to see. Like, there are movies nowadays that can't even pull that off with bigger budget, because they just don't technically understand what it takes to make that sort of thing happen. And then going back to what you were saying, how this movie utilizes all these different technologies of miniatures, models, puppets. The opening sequence, we're blasted into the future, where we see basically the machines rising up, attacking the resistance. We see the older John Connor, and it is impressive to see all these T-800 skeletons and all these Skynet like ships going through. And yeah, it's all model. It's a lot of models and miniatures. It looks so damn good. The way it's photographed, how he composes all the shots, like you were mentioning, the lighting, the cinematography itself, all the atmosphere that it creates. It's really impressive to see a movie that does all that, and it doesn't use CGI. It does it all practically in camera. Does it have CGI enhancements? I'm sure it has some sort of CGI enhancement.
Maybe at this point, maybe
very little. Very little. A lot of it's all done practically, and it looks damn good. And I think also what helps it is, because they are these puppets and they are these animatronic sort of figures, it adds to the fact that they're robotic. Whereas you get into using CG, it adds this fluidity that kind of takes away the robotic sort of sensation of it. Right.
To me, it is. It's a great movie. I love also how casually violent it is.
It is.
Like, it is like the arm cutting. The arm cutting scene is truly horrific.
It is.
The music
like
and the music makes it horrific.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this last night. The scene when the T-1000 falls into the vat and
that's
for lack of
so
a better, it's so creepy. It feels very much like The Thing, to some extent. And Stan Winston did do some work on The Thing, but also the when the CG, I don't know how else you would describe it, like it barfs up its own head. Which is such a crazy, weird, bizarre.
It like turns itself out on itself. It's so crazy.
So good. The music there is killer. The casual cursing, that was something I definitely missed from the next two Terminator movies. Well, not just like Sarah Connor being very kind of like, drop the shit kind of a thing.
Well, it's again, it's that thing of like, they knew what they were making and these characters felt real.
Yes.
It felt real. And I think that's such a nice layer to see from a movie like this, where most people may write off, oh, it's just a sci-fi movie. It's really a lot more than that. It's not just like,
it makes them feel like real world people.
Exactly. Yeah. And I do agree. I feel like the sequels kind of lost that sort of thing. They were either trying to appease one type of audience and get too many eyes on it, and we're ignoring the fact that like these characters feel so real that if this was really happening, you would buy into this.
Let me ask you this, because people, it seems to be a hit point for some people. How do you think Edward Furlong is in the movie as John Connor?
I think he's great. I enjoy sort of like the way that he's written and how he kind of performs. He kind of, to me, feels just like a regular kid who would be kind of this benevolent little shit who would go off and do these things, but I'm not bothered by it.
Yeah, I think for me, like, I like him too, and I'm usually somebody, like, I just saw The Dark Tower, and the kid in that movie is not good. He actually kind of hurts the film, and so I was wondering, watching it this time, like, oh, am I, is Eddie Furlong going to stand out to me?
Yeah.
Do I have nostalgia glasses on for this movie that it's like a bad performance I'm forgiving because I saw it when I was a kid, so therefore, blah, blah, blah. And I actually think, like, there's a couple line deliveries that are not the best here and there. This is his first movie. He's a young and inexperienced actor. But for the most part, I think, and also, sad behind the scenes stuff, that Eddie Furlong did in real life end up kind of being a troubled kid and a troubled man who's dealt with some issues. It kind of added to this authenticity that you kind of feel like he probably is just that kid when the cameras are off. Which is like a kid riding a dirt bike who's like, fuck my step parents.
Getting into trouble.
I like him a lot. And I think like the movie wouldn't work if he didn't work. I think he works for what the script demands of him. Linda Hamilton is fantastic.
Oh my God,
Linda Hamilton is killer in this movie.
She's so good.
She's so good, and the fact that it's one of those movies where watching it now years later, it feels like such a shame that she didn't get nominated. Which, I mean, the Oscars don't usually nominate sci-fi action
especially
performances. Well, and I think some people were a little surprised by it because Sigourney Weaver had been nominated for Aliens.
That's true.
Which was a James Cameron movie and a sequel, and a big sci-fi sequel. So I think some people were hoping at the time, and you watch it now, and it does feel like a shame that she wasn't at least nominated. She's really good in it. Arnold, I love Arnold, and this is prime Arnold.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I have to echo what you say about Linda Hamilton, because I think, again, as a kid, you watch it, and it kind of goes out your head that you're like, watching these people really perform this, and it feels so real to you. And I was kind of always there for the action, but then you watch it now, and you watch her just chew up the scenery where she's in the room telling the doctor, like, I'm much better now, like, I'm a lot clearer. And so now you
Silverman.
Silverman. So now you don't believe the Terminator is real? Like, no, trying to really fool him and convince him. And when she realizes that she hasn't done it, she loses it. And like, when she's pissed, like, she knows how to play pissed so fucking well. This mother who's just like on this mission to protect her son and to do whatever she can to prevent the future from becoming the future that she envisions and that she sees every single night in her dreams. I mean, when she is looking through the fence and seeing all the people on the playground, and then the bombs drop and like everyone is basically completely destroyed, she is there shaking that fence, and you don't even hear really any, like, you hear some
you hear the fence rattle, but you don't hear her.
Fence rattling, you don't hear her, and it's
until
just
the
like
scream,
gut wrenching. Like she absolutely nails it so well. Arnold does such a fantastic job as the Terminator, as he has done.
This is at this point now, 1990, 91 Arnold. This is prime Arnold. This is he's done enough early acting to get a lot of kinks out of his system about what acting is. At this point, he's done Total Recall. He's got True Lies a couple years ahead of him. This is like prime Arnold. This is my favorite version of Arnold.
So of course, it's a 3D converted movie. How did you feel about the 3D, and did you feel like it was a necessary addition?
I mean, truthfully, like, and that's not to say it was bad. It's an interesting movie to try and put in 3D because there's not really you're not going to get the gimmicky 3D. There was one shot when in the hospital scene where Arnold points the gun and the gun came out of the screen. That was pretty cool. But for the most part, you're not getting a lot of that kind of stuff. You would think with the T1000 stabbing, you'd get a lot of that. That doesn't happen so much. In truth, like there was a lot that I kind of forgot it was in 3D. And because, like, again, so many of these are like vista shots with the characters there, so there's only so much you can do to add depth or take depth away or that kind of a thing. So I frankly, it didn't do much for me. If this was just like a 4K restoration thrown up on the screen with no 3D, I think I would have been happy. It didn't detract, didn't add.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. Everybody knows, like, I worked in 3D for years, and I think the biggest thing for me in terms of the 3D is I wish that they would have maybe experimented more with playing things outside of the screen. I think they played a lot of stuff inside, and I think maybe they were afraid of people maybe coming at it and saying, like, it's too gimmicky, like, there's too many things popping out of the screen.
Right.
With Titanic, I feel like James Cameron did a really good job of trying to make it as sort of real world in terms of the scale as much as he could. And I feel like with this Terminator movie, it was less of that. And they added depth. I think the amount of depth that they added, they could have maybe expanded out even more. There are certain limitations when you do things like that. When you have these really wide, expansive shots of scenery and all that kind of stuff, it tends to miniaturize the shots, and it actually makes it look like it's a little model set of a city because of how much depth you add to it. But they find ways of compressing and expanding the depth to really adjust it to make it sure it plays well when it needs to play.
Right.
I think for me, the biggest thing that I noticed, and I think this is something that I noticed only because I did the job for so many years, things like edges falling back, hair has always been a real pain in the ass where it falls, and like it creates sometimes problems. Some of the faces were a little weird where she's talking to Silverman. They do close-ups between the two characters, and they bulge out his cheeks. They sink in his chin and his muzzle and his eyes, and it's too much to the point where he looks like he literally has like droopy cheeks coming out. Maybe that's something that you may not notice, but with
I did not.
Yeah, with a trained eye, like you definitely notice those things more. Because I mean, I looked at 3D every day for 5 years, so your eye kind of is trained to notice those types of things. But overall, I think the conversion itself, it was really good. Like, it was really well done. And a lot of times, you know, I will say, like, if you don't notice the 3D in terms of it not taking you out of it, but you have little moments where you notice it, I think that's where it works the best. But I do feel like there were certain opportunities that they could have taken, especially with the T1000, with him having knives coming out at people, and play that out. Not a lot, but enough that a person will then sit there and realize, oh yeah, this is in 3D. Oh shit.
Well, also considering that they had a Terminator 2 3D ride forever that James Cameron directed with this cast.
Yeah. And that was really rad. I thought that they definitely pushed the boundaries of that 3D, and they really made it pop. And the thing is too, when you're watching on a big screen, it's hard because...
Which at this point, I got to say for that real quick, sorry to interrupt. I want that as its own little 20-minute movie. I know it's not going to be in 3D.
I want that.
Just put that out. Just put it out on something at this point. Like, honestly, James Cameron shot it. It stars the original cast. Just put it out there. Just put it out.
I know. I honestly would love it if they would have been like, oh, it's going to be a special feature on the 3D Blu-ray. I would have been like, perfect. Perfect.
If you want to make it its own movie to get as much money as you can, fine. I don't care. Just put it out.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. So the other thing I was going to mention is, when you are watching a 3D movie and the closer you are to the screen, the more it kind of compresses it. So I'm actually really curious to throw it up on a TV here at the house and sit back a further distance from it, because it's going to be a little bit. It's obviously going to be smaller. You're going to be further away from it.
Well, let me ask:
it expands the 3D.
Is the 4K going to be in 3D? Because I'm just seeing Terminator 2 4K. I'm not seeing 3D advertised on that.
I'm not sure, and I hope that they do put it out in 3D, because I obviously will buy it in 3D.
Someone's going to say in the comments. I'm going to look while you're talking.
I know, right? I hope that they do end up putting it out in 3D, because I really would like to see it in 3D at home and see sort of what the difference is. If they end up sort of going in and punching up the 3D, because after the fact they can always go in and increase the depth of it if they want to, and how it's also going to look on a small screen from a further distance instead of being on a big screen at a closer distance. The further you get away from something physically, like a 3D TV and a 3D image, it expands the depth. So I'm curious to see how it plays. But overall, I thought the conversion, the quality was really, really good. It's Titanic level good, Jurassic Park level good. I just wish that maybe they would have experimented with more opportunities of playing with the 3D and making it pop a little bit more at certain points, particularly with the T1000, and particularly when you have a lot of this action stuff where you have a lot of practical elements like sparks and smoke. I think they could have pushed it a little bit more. Obviously, you know, still staying on the side of caution and not going overboard where things can look miniaturized.
So as of right now, looking at least the Amazon listing, it is not saying anything about this being in 3D.
God damn
it. It says 3 versions of the movie, though, so maybe one of those versions is 3D.
I hope so.
I know it's obviously going to be the theatrical cut, and then the...
So we have this 4K, which is the regular 4K, but then we also
which
have
is actually
that box set.
which is surprisingly cheap. I'll tell everyone right now, if you do have 4K... I'll say this, actually, first of all. If you've never seen this movie in the theater and it's playing by you, go see it. It's a great theater experience. The sound design,
it's so
seeing
fun.
it on the big screen. But if you can't do that, because it's not playing at every theater, the 4K is very cheap. If you have a 4K television or 4K player, I think it's worth getting $16. It's a real cleanup picture.
Oh, really? Well, that's actually a really good deal. I was expecting it to be more.
No, yeah, 16
bucks. That is a really good deal.
$16, 3 cuts of the movie, comes out on Halloween, October 31st.
Oh, baby. Yeah, I'm definitely going to get that. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I was noticing that this movie actually has quite a few cuts. It ranges from like 2 hours and like 15, 17 minutes, like 2 hours and like 35 minutes.
Yeah, there's the special edition, which James Cameron's never called anything a director's cut. He goes special edition, kind of like the Aliens has a special edition that I think has like 20 extra minutes. Terminator 2 is the same way. It's got some really good sequences in it, but the version that's in the theaters right now, and I believe the version that's getting the 4K restoration, is the original theatrical cut. Yeah. The biggest things that usually people remember about the special edition is the T-1000. You see it a little bit in the theatrical after he gets like melted down and shot when he turns on the glass. We see that scene where it just like there's like a single line.
Yeah.
He's malfunctioning. So there's more scenes of that. Like he grabs onto a handrail and suddenly can't move and looks down and his hand is melted into the rails. He pulls it up and does a thing. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But a lot of those scenes are taken out for tension purposes.
Right.
But there's a lot of good stuff in there if you've never seen that edition of the movie. But yeah, Terminator 2, it's great.
It's so good. It still holds up. If you haven't seen it in theater and it's playing near you, absolutely go check it out. It's one of my favorite movies. I'm actually really glad that we did go, because watching it again after all these years on a big screen, I'm like, this movie still packs a wallop.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, let us know in the comments below. Did you check out this 3D version of Terminator? What did you think of it? What did you think of the 3D? Was it necessary? Was it not necessary? Was it worth it? Was it worth the ticket price? Let us know.
And also, I would like to know, too, I know this is in theaters, but do you want us to do more retro reviews? Because there's a lot of movies me and Adam really like.
Yeah.
A lot of people here at the house really love that I'm sure we'd love to tell you guys about.
We got Blu-rays for days.
We got Blu-rays for days. And so if you guys like this and you want us to do more retro films of different genres and things like that, let us know. Let us know in the comments, please.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd love to do more, especially with some of these directors who don't come out and make movies, once every 2 years.
No, I was listening to a movie review for Detroit, the new Catherine Bigelow movie, and it dawned on me that Hurt Locker came out the same year as Avatar.
2009.
Catherine Bigelow has put out 2 more movies, and James Cameron has not put out another movie yet.
Yeah, that's crazy. I would love to go back and I would love to revisit some of these things. So let us know in the comments below what other movies you'd like us to review. If there's directors you'd like us to highlight or even cinematographers, just let us know.
With Halloween coming, is there any horror films you want us to talk about?
Yeah, I love October. Let us know in the comments below. Make sure you subscribe right here, youtube.com/hyperrpg. Also twitch.tv/hyperrpg for all the latest programming. Thanks, guys.
I'll be back.